Did we really land on the moon? Let's get it.
No way. That's great.
Yes, we landed on the moon, but it's been 45 years since we've been back there.
Is there people who actually don't believe we landed on the moon? I don't believe that's true. I think those people who don't believe we landed on the moon were just rage baiting. Like, genuinely. There's no way you don't believe it. There's no way.
Heck, it's been even 45 years since we went beyond low Earth orbit.
And when I say we, I mean the United States. Only 12 humans have ever walked on the surface of the moon, all of them men, and all of them American. The last two to be there were Eugene Cernan and Harrison Schmitt.
Yo, I don't even know. I've never even heard about these two.
That was in December of 1972 of the Apollo 17 mission.
For more about the moon landings, check out this video by the legendary Keith Hughes. Keith Hughes has been making history videos on YouTube longer than just about anybody, and they are all high quality. So while you're over there, be sure to go ahead and
Shout out him.
subscribe if you haven't already subscribed to his channel. Now, the moon landings. Apparently, we never landed on the moon. It was all just a hoax. At least that's what a lot of people think, okay? One survey last year in the United Kingdom, it said that 52% of people thought the moon landings...
No way, 52% of the British people... No, that's not true. Yo, Brits, what are y'all doing? What's y'all's education over there, bro?
were faked. That's pretty high, and I know that's just one survey, and it's not a very good sample size, but still,
Okay.
a lot of people out there don't think the moon landings really happened.
It's easy to understand why people would be skeptical. Skeptics often point to the motive for wanting to fake the whole thing. The race to the moon was part of the space race during a particularly tense time during the Cold War. The United States and the Soviet Union were battling it out to get there first. Skeptics say the United States would have wanted to fake it to show they won the space race even if they knew it actually wasn't possible to go. The Soviet Union had epically failed to ever get even near the moon, so they argue it seems a bit suspicious that the United States was able to land men safely on the moon 6 times in 3.5 years, yet never do so since. Was this just...
Wait. That is valid. Okay. That's good. That's a good point out right there. That's a good point out.
just a publicity stunt, faked in order to strongly discourage the Soviet Union and give the United States a huge advantage in the Cold War while saving lots of money? But how could this hoax be pulled off? Skeptics
Yo. I'm not agreeing with him.
argue the technology did exist to recreate a fake moon landing in a film studio. Sure, they argue the astronauts really did take off into space, but they likely just orbited the Earth for several days before landing back on Earth, while faked footage was distributed.
That's smart. No, that's... Okay, it is just a theory, though, so that's probably not true, but...
to the masses.
But what evidence do we have that the moon landings were faked? For the rest of this video, I will give you the evidence that creates doubt, I will give you NASA's response to that, and then I will give you my conclusion.
The first thing that causes doubt is the footage showing the American flag on the moon waving. Skeptics say the flag waving shows the presence of wind, which should be impossible on the moon because it doesn't have much of an atmosphere and is surrounded by a vacuum. NASA insists that the flag moved due to astronaut Buzz Aldrin twisting the flagpole, causing it to move like that. Apparently, the astronauts also accidentally bent the horizontal rods that were supposed to hold the flag outward.
My take? I give NASA the benefit of the doubt here.
The next evidence that causes doubt
What do you mean you give him better than doubt? Wait, what? True, because look. This right here. There's maybe was supposed to be another one right here. Maybe. Ooh. Okay, I see what he means.
also accidentally bent the horizontal rods that were supposed to hold the flag outward.
My take? I give NASA the benefit of the doubt here.
The next evidence that causes doubt is the fact that there were no stars in any of the footage or photographs taken by NASA on the moon.
It's because they're so far away. The light doesn't. Like, I don't know if light travels that far to them. Like, not far, but like I don't know.
Say stars were left out because astronomers would have been able to use them to determine whether the photos were taken from the Earth or Moon. NASA, as well as many others, argued that of course you wouldn't be able to see the stars because the moon's surface is so bright.
Oh. Yo. Was that way wrong?
It's the same reason why you can't see the stars standing on a bright football field at night.
So the sun is natural light pollution is what they're saying?
Astronauts were able to take long exposure UV photographs of bright stars and Venus from the moon, though, but skeptics would probably argue these photos were taken from Earth.
Okay, so they did take pictures. They did get stars. So obviously just proved they're wrong.
My take? I'm again going to go with NASA on this one.
What about the fact that there was no blast crater from the lunar module on the moon, especially when scientists before predicted one would be created? Well, NASA says those scientists predicted wrong. The fact is, the pressure on the moon was simply too low for the lunar module to create a crater.
Again, NASA for the win on this one.
Quite a bit of discussion by skeptics revolve around the discussion of lighting and shadows in photographs taken on the moon. Shadows are inconsistent and often intersect in photographs. Skeptics argue that the shadows should be completely black and run parallel to each other. NASA and others argue that the shadows are weird on the moon due to many light sources and lunar dust. Also, the unique terrain of the moon alters how the shadows are seen.
That's weird. That is skeptical. That is weird. That is weird. I don't know. I've never thought about that. I've never really looked at the shadows. Yo.
Definitely understand the skepticism on this one. But again, I'm going to give NASA the benefit of the doubt.
Skeptics also say the photographs on the moon show the same exact background, despite astronauts saying the photos were taken far away from each other. They argue that the backdrop was basically kept the same, even for different Apollo missions. Take these photographs, for example. Skeptics have combined the two pictures and claim the backgrounds match. Kind of. Well, NASA says that because the moon is much smaller than Earth, horizons appear closer to the naked eye than they really are, and thus may look identical from different viewpoints.
I don't know. This one is definitely suspicious. I'm a little bit skeptical on this one.
Other skeptics point to the massive radiation found in the Van Allen radiation belt and just the radiation in general out in space. They argue that the inevitably prolonged radiation exposure would have made it impossible for astronauts to go to the moon. NASA says the astronauts in the Apollo spacecrafts were only in the Van Allen radiation belt for a little over an hour and a half at most, and that their spacecraft had aluminum protection from the radiation. Okay, so say they really did go to the moon, but the film was destroyed by all the radiation, so they had to refilm it on a Hollywood set. Well, NASA says the film was kept in metal containers that protected it from radiation as well. Well, what about solar flares on the surface of the moon? NASA admits that could be a potential threat.
Yeah, literally, now we're just getting into what ifs. Like, what if a random solar flare hits them? Like, yeah, then they're freaking probably toasted.
Since the moon has no atmosphere, but no solar flares were recorded during any of the Apollo missions, luckily.
Yeah, these concerns have merit. I could see them actually landing on the moon, but then filming and then having all the footage destroyed, and then they have to go back and actually fake the footage, even though they really did go. I don't know. That makes sense to me.
No, it doesn't.
Now wait just a second. Supposedly, there is still stuff on the moon that the astronauts would have left behind. If we can just show those, we can put this whole debate to rest. Well, skeptics argue that if we have instruments like the Hubble Space Telescope, which can see way off into the universe, why can't we use it to see various objects still on the moon? NASA doesn't want to do this. So skeptics are like, See? If you got nothing to hide, you would. NASA argues that no telescope in existence can show these objects in detail. The smallest thing you can currently see on the moon from our most powerful telescope would have to be bigger than a house. NASA says, why would we waste our time when nothing would show up anyway? Still,
That's valid. But what they should do is build supplies. Oh, well, I mean, I guess technically we will be able to here soon.
in 2009, NASA sent its Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter, a robotic spacecraft that has been orbiting and mapping nearly all of the moon's surface. It released these photos, saying, see, there's all the stuff left by the Apollo missions. But these haven't convinced skeptics much because you can't make out many details with these. Plus, NASA released them, and they could have photoshopped them, man. Other countries
That is very valid. They could have photoshopped.
have also confirmed the moon landings with photographs of their own, although China never released theirs.
My take, there is plenty of third-party evidence that verifies that we landed on the moon. It would have to be quite the conspiracy involving tens of thousands of people all around the world to pull this off. It's unfortunate that the photographs that we do have are not that detailed, but in the Photoshop era, I don't know if it would really even matter if they were detailed. People wouldn't believe it anyway. I still lean towards NASA on this one.
Skeptics
Yeah, I mean, NASA's kind of taking the dub on every single one of these accounts, not gonna lie. Outside of maybe the shadow.
point out how the footprints in the moon dust are suspiciously well preserved, despite no moisture on the moon. NASA argued that moon dust is not weathered, so it would stick together like that. This theory ended up being debunked on an episode of the show Mythbusters. By the way, that episode also debunked claims that the photos and film were faked and debunked claims that the American flag on the moon couldn't move like that.
There are other pieces of evidence that skeptics point to, but
So they have a whole video proving. I mean, I guess that could be fake too, you know? That could be fake.
frankly, I'm not going to bring those up because they're just not that convincing to me. The fact of the matter is, we will know for sure in the near future whether or not we actually landed on the moon. The reason why is because you have billionaires like Elon Musk and his forward-thinking company SpaceX that plan on actually going to the moon within a few years. NASA plans annual flights to the moon's orbit by the year 2023. So in my opinion,
3 years later, that ain't happening.
yes. We landed on the moon! There's just too much third-party evidence for the moon landings. But I totally understand why people are skeptical. The motives are there. Hopefully, in the near future, we will get definitive proof that we did land on the moon. But people probably still won't believe. A
Who
special
is this
thanks
guy?
to Keith Hughes for collaborating with me on this project. Believe it or
Mr. B? Subbing to him. Big dub, big dub.